Daniela Cruz was brought to America from Mexico as a child. The undocumented immigrant drives without a license. Arizona's new law means she could face more than a ticket if stopped by police.
Sometimes when there's a police car behind me, my heart does start to race. I start to get nervous. I start to get shaky just because I know that I can get pulled over for anything.
Police here are required to determine the immigration status of a person stopped or arrested if there's a, quote, reasonable suspicion they are in the U.S. illegally. But Phoenix Police Chief Daniel Garcia says no one will be stopped without cause.
That's the point that I think people have a tendency to forget. Before you have reasonable suspicion that someone's here illegally, you have to have reasonable suspicion as a police officer that a crime has occurred before you have reasonable suspicion on the documentation or not.
Is a crime not stopping fully at a stop sign?
Yes, sir, it can be that.
Chief Garcia says suspects will be held while officers check with federal officials at ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
The question is, how long are we going to detain him? I believe it should be no longer than any other traffic stop that occurs, 10 minutes at the most. If ICE answers, or if I've answers, then we have an answer. If they don't answer, then we have an obligation to let that citizen go.
But Alessandra Soler of the American Civil Liberties Union says civil rights advocates will be watching for signs of racial profiling.
Law enforcement officials across the state have said we can enforce the Show Me Your Papers law without racial profiling.
And that's a real problem because law enforcement is saying, trust us, we know better, we're not going to engage in racial profiling. But the reality is that they're ignoring a very real problem of racial profiling that we have had in this state for a very, very long time.
Federal authorities say they will answer calls from Arizona officials to check immigration status. But, Scott, they will only take into custody illegal immigrants who are violent criminals or those who have crossed the border repeatedly.
Thank you, John.